Welcome back. Now in this lecture, what we are going to do is address an important question. How much money should I invest in the stock market? Now you should understand that since each individual's personal and financial situation is different, it would be imprudent on our part to give a specific number or percentage asset that might work for everyone. In fact, we'll go one step further and urge you to not pay attention to some common formulas for asset allocation that are touted in public. For example, one common suggested formula is that 100 minus whatever is your age is the percentage allocation you should have in equities or stocks. Now this kind of a formula is flawed not only because it fails to consider the specific situation of every individual, but also because it does not take into account the possibility of wild fluctuation in investment value, which may lead to liquidity issues for the investor. To understand this, consider the following example. Say a recent graduate from college who may have limited savings even after working for 2 to 3 years. He may also be serving an education loan. Now in such a scenario, if he decides to invest close to 70 to 75% of his savings in equities, he runs the risk of getting into liquidity issues very early in his life. So for example, what if the stock market crashes and his portfolio goes down by over 30%? Will he be comfortable exiting his position in such a loss? What if the market-wide crash is so severe that he ends up losing his job? He'll immediately run into trouble not just for his living expenses, but also on his education loan. Considering all this, ideally you should only invest some portion of your excess savings into the stock market. Note that when we say excess savings, this is slightly different from savings. So let's first elaborate some terminologies. Say for example, we say that savings in a given month is given by savings equal to income minus expenses. So you deduct your monthly expenses from your monthly income to arrive at your monthly savings. Here income may be income from salary, business, profession, or the income may come from multiple sources, while expenses should include both essential expenses and discretionary expenses. Essential expenses include living expenses, rent, loan repayments, health and life insurance premiums, while discretionary expenses include expenses on travel, luxury, leisure, and other non-essentials. Now your accumulated savings is essentially the sum of your savings over your lifetime. Also, one should always hold at least 6 months of essential expenses. Now this will be defined as emergency fund. Now for example, if your accumulated savings is less than your emergency fund, your first priority should be to build up your emergency fund. Hence, most of your monthly savings should go to your emergency fund. Needless to say, no part of your emergency fund should be invested in equities because there is a chance that the value of your investment may come down substantially at any point in time, and your emergency fund should be insulated from any such volatility in your investment value. Now, in case your accumulated savings over your lifetime is greater than the emergency fund, then the excess of your accumulated savings over your emergency fund is your investable surplus. This investable surplus is the money that can potentially be used to make investments in the stock market. But before you decide on the percentage of investable surplus that can be invested in equities, you need to figure out your foreseeable fund requirements over the next 2 to 3 years. For example, if you know that you would require a sum of money in the next 1 or 2 years to meet some obligation, then this amount should not be invested in equities, as equity returns are inherently volatile. This fund requirement must ideally be invested in products which provide fixed returns. After you deduct all your fund requirements over the next 2 or 3 years from your investable surplus, you arrive at the sum that is available to you that can be allocated to equities. Let's call this sum as your investment portfolio. While your investment portfolio can be allocated to equity, it should not necessarily be entirely allocated to equity. If someone has just started working it is possible that the investment portfolio is only 20 to 30% of his entire savings. In such a case, it may be possible to allocate the entire capital to equities. On the other hand, if someone is in their early 50s, it is possible that their investment portfolio is more than 60 to 70% of their entire savings. Since they are only few years away from their retirement, it won't be advisable for them to allocate their entire investment portfolio to equities. For example, if they have created a corpus for their retirement, they would not want most of it to be allocated to equities. Instead, most of their portfolio should be allocated to instruments which offer fixed returns, and only some portion, say 20 to 30% of the corpus, should be in equities. A lot of people just before the 2008 market crash made the mistake of allocating a lot of their retirement funds into equities. Some people had actually invested more than 80% of their retirement corpus in equities. Needless to say, when the market crash happened, they were devastated by seeing the fall in the value of their investment corpus. So this is the flip side to allocating your entire or most of your investment portfolio to equities. That is, if there is sudden fall in the equity markets, you have to forego on the opportunity to invest more capital in equities at lower prices. Another flip side to allocating your entire investment portfolio to equities is that if there is a sudden fall in the equity markets, you have to forego on the opportunity to invest more capital in equities at lower prices. Doing so could have actually helped you gain better returns in the long run. Such sudden falls are many times great opportunities which could help you gain better returns in the long run. Hence, your allocation towards equities should always take all these factors into account, and you should always have substantial surplus cash, which is actually a part of your investment portfolio, so that you can benefit from such opportunities that may come from sudden fall in the equity market. When investing in equities, one should always try to diversify into multiple mutual funds and individual stocks in order to protect themselves from losing too much money in one equity investment. Doing so also has the benefit that some securities may provide positive returns, which may offset negative returns from some other securities. For investors who are risk averse, this reduces the overall volatility in returns from their equity investments and helps them stay invested for longer periods during times of volatility.